At this time, I would like to call the regular meeting to order. Clerk of the board, can you please call the roll?
Arencibia?
Present.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Here.
Segura?
Here.
Solis?
Present.
Aguirre?
Here.
This is the point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on matters posted for the special meeting and in accordance with Government Code Section 54954.3A. The board will provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body concerning any item that has been described in the notice for the meeting, before or during the consideration of that item. Each person wishing to address an item on the meeting notice in closed session will have 2 minutes to do so.
There are no speakers, Mr. President.
If there are no further communications, then I will recess the meeting for consideration of the following closed session items as posted on the meeting notice. Number 1, student expulsions, suspended expulsion reinstatements, Educational Code Section 48916-48918, students identified by case and ID number. Number 2, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, Government Code Section 54957. Number 3, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. Number 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956. Number 5, conference with labor negotiator, Government Code Section 54957.6. We will now adjourn to closed session. At this time, I'd like to reconvene the regular board meeting. Clerk of the board, please call roll.
Arencibia?
Present.
Emerald? Here. Lopez Zepeda?
Here.
Segura? Here. Solis?
Present.
Oh,
Aguirre?
here. We are pleased to welcome the Mar Vista High School NJROTC Color Guard, who will present the colors, and then we will hold a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everybody, please place your right hand over your heart. And ready? Begin.
And just a brief explanation about why these young men and women are here. Members of the Navy Junior ROTC at Mar Vista High School. They are doing some very important volunteer work for Lions International. Our club in Imperial Beach is small, but we're mighty, and we've enlisted these young men and women to help us count and sort and prepare in packages delivery of about 3,000 pairs of eyeglasses so far to the Lions Center in Balboa Park, and then they will be transferred to Los Angeles, where in the lab they will be repaired, refitted, and distributed to people who are sight impaired. So you are literally helping thousands of people you've never met, you may never know, but you're making a difference in their life by helping them see the world as they never have before. So we wanted you here, we wanted to acknowledge you and your principal here, Ms. Kramer, and tell you what a great job you're doing and a great difference you're making in the community. And committing yourself not only to service in the military, but committing yourself to helping people in our community and beyond to be able to see a brighter future. So thank you so much for being here. And if we could, just one more hand for these fine young men and women. Did you want to make you want to make a statement of any kind before we go on to the other business of the evening?
They're actually giving a presentation in a few minutes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
The board met in closed session preceding this meeting to discuss the following issues: student expulsions, suspended expulsions, reinstatements, Education Code 48916 to 48918, students identified by case and ID number. Number 2, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, Government Code Section 54957. Number 3, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. Number 4, conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. Number 5, conference with labor negotiator, Government Code Section 54957.6, and the board took the following action. Moved by Lopez Zepeda, seconded by Solis, to approve the non-re-election of one certificated employee with a vote of Arencibia, yes; Emerald, yes; Lopez Zepeda, yes; Segura, yes; Solis, yes. Moved by Arencibia and seconded by Solis to approve the request of leave of absence for one certificated leave employee with a vote of Arancibia, yes, Emerald, yes, Lopez Cepeda, yes, Segura, yes, Solis, yes. Moved by Solis and seconded by Emerald to approve the request for leave of absence for one certificated employee with a vote of Arancibia, yes, Emerald, yes, Lopez Cepeda, yes, Segura, yes, Solis, yes. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the March 11th, 2024 regular board meeting with the change that the board will first consider board agenda item 04 after the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ringfield,
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Cepeda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
At this time, we would like to welcome the Mar Vista High NJROTC program leader, Mr. Eric Collins, who has a presentation for the board.
Mr. Color Guard to perform tonight. We have a brief presentation for you guys to let you know some of the great things they're doing in our community in Imperial Beach and at the school of Mar Vista. We have our operation officer, Iris Romero. She would do a 3 to 5 minute presentation for you guys. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. So this is So this is our board brief, March 2024. Next slide. So I will be briefing the Lions Club, history of our unit, accomplishments to date, and our JROTC goals. Okay, so Mar Vista and Lions International. Students have collected nearly 3,000 eyeglasses and optical lenses from various outlets around the South Bay area. Our efforts from JROTC cadets involve sorting, counting, carefully packing this valuable collection. Our goal is to deliver these eyeglasses and quality lenses to the Lions Center in Balboa Park. Once there, the eyewear is forwarded to labs in Los Angeles where it undergoes processing before being distributed to individuals worldwide. Next slide. So just something about our unit. The NJROTC Training Corps program was instituted by Congress in 1964, and it was established in our school on September 26, 1974. Next slide. These are just some of my favorite accomplishments to this date. So we have graduates from various camps, and some of my favorite color guard events include the ones for the mayor and this one. These are just some of my favorite pictures. I'm in some of them. All of them, pretty much. Okay, so some of our end of semester goals especially include increasing the number of cadets in our unit. We were actually on probation last year, I think, for not having enough cadets. And I'd also really like to increase our footprint in Imperial Beach, just as we are doing right now. And we hope to continue to be helpful. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Question?
She was a little nervous.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Colleagues?
First off, I want to say what a wonderful job to showcase what our students are doing out in the community. And as somebody who needs glasses myself, I can tell you how important it really is for students to be able to learn, for people in our community to be able to navigate our environment. So thank you for all that you're doing. And again, what a wonderful example of our students doing some positive out in the community to support our broader neighbors. So thank you for the work that you do, and what a wonderful example you set for our district.
The work isn't over yet. It's really just begun. In the weeks ahead, we'll be collecting from the largest optical center probably in the western United States, which is the Navy Hospital in Balboa Park. That's the basis for all of the western U.S. optical services. And we'll be picking some of those things up, so you'll have your hands full. But better yet, you take this message out to the community, and it helps to build the resources of Lions International and helps them become far better at what they do in terms of their outreach and their effectiveness. So starting here with your small organization, you're inspiring others, and you'll contribute to the growth of a service that really is indispensable, not just here in our community, but worldwide. So thank you very much for your commitment to this cause. Thank you for doing everything you're doing each day. And I wish you all very well. I think some of you may be graduating pretty soon and going on to your next place of service. And we want to wish you all success in the world. And thanks again for being here.
Thank you again. We will now have a message from Superintendent Dr. Moises Aguirre.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Arancibia. Good evening and buenas tardes to everybody. Welcome to our March 11th board meeting. It certainly feels like we are 1 week away from spring break, as it is getting very busy out there with wonderful events and things going on around our schools. However, before I begin, I wanted to take a solemn moment to share our condolences with the families of 2 team members who recently have passed away. Ms. Sonia Gerardo Perkins, who was a Spanish teacher at Montgomery High School, as well as Ms. Melissa Uriarte at Mar Vista High School, who was a special education teacher, a tennis coach, and a Face Club advisor. Our sincerest condolences to their families, and please know that we are with you at this time of sorrow. Now, regarding school visits and activities going on, there have been a number of visits and activities across the district, so I'll try to sum some of them up for us. There was a science, technology, and engineering and math fair at Otay Ranch. It feels like it was forever ago, but it was less than a month ago. It was a wonderful event. I was struck by a number of areas of focus, and one was AI. Artificial intelligence was definitely an area of focus, and the second one is a number of students who studied everything that's going on at the Tijuana River Valley and all that entails. And you may see a resolution later in our board meeting tonight to add our voice to a call of action for the federal government. And so that STEM fair was an amazing event, and it's really interesting to see the things that our students are focusing on. Also conducted a number of school and or classroom visits. Visited Montgomery High School, Montgomery Middle School, also Southwest High School, as well as Hilltop High School for a plaque installation in remembrance of baseball coach, Coach Baumgarten. We had a visit by Judge Enrique Camarena Jr. to Castle Park Middle School. I had an opportunity to provide a keynote address at the Adelante Latino Conference at UC San Diego last week, not this week, but a week ago. Also attended our Audit and Finance Subcommittee, where we reviewed our numerous audits that we undergo, as well as our financial position. I had an opportunity, along with Dr. Sokol and Trustee Emerald, to meet with our assembly member to discuss how the state budget impacts our district. I had an opportunity to attend our district's annual art gala. Thank you to all the CTE teachers and staff who helped to organize it, and what a wonderful event and a partnership with the community. And it was a wonderful turnout by parents, students, teachers, and everybody all around. Also attended a Ballet Folklorico event at San Isidro High School this Saturday, where over 8 schools and 300 students participated. Again, just a wonderful example of all the things that our students are engaged with. And just this afternoon, I had an opportunity to attend the conclusion of an AVID demonstration school visit, where San Isidro High was renewed as an AVID National Demonstration School. So congratulations and to San Isidro High School. Also in athletics, there were a lot of going on. For those of you who follow the Metro Conference, Castle Park boys soccer team was the Division V champions, as well as Southern California runner-up. Over at Montgomery, the girls basketball team was Division III champion, as well as the California State runner-up. They actually had an opportunity, they had an opportunity to travel to Sacramento, and while they didn't win on this occasion, I want them to know they made us proud. And what a wonderful showing for our district, as well as the Metro Conference. We also had the following CIF Division champions: the Olympian girls wrestling team from Division I, Bonita Vista High School girls soccer champion from Division I, Mar Vista High girls soccer for Division V, and Olympian High School boys basketball champions for Division III. So as you can see, there's a lot of champions here at Sweetwater in the Metro Conference. So thank you to all those who coach, mentor our young students. Thank you to our students and our parents who make sure that our students can go to all these wonderful events. Again, thank you for everybody who makes this possible. Again, that was a very busy month, and this week promises to be just as busy, if not more, given that we're getting ready for spring break here shortly. And so again, it's truly something to wonder at all the wonderful things that happen in our community with our students, with our staff, and our broader impact. And I see some members of our community here, I think, to support one of the resolutions for us to support the community of Imperial Beach later for everything that's going on there. So we can be a constructive voice of collaboration. I really would like for our district to be that voice. And so with that, thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. We will now have a message from, a report from the Student Board Representative, Mr. Isaiah Wingfield.
All right, good evening, all. I thought the lost hour wouldn't affect me, but it did. I woke up this morning and I was tired all day. Anyway, last week I conducted my monthly ASB President's meeting and have compiled a report. As far as events on campus, Montgomery High School shared that their girls basketball team traveled to Sacramento for playoffs. It fell just short, 56-50 against Oakland High School. Their boys basketball team was also in the CIF playoffs. They take great pride in their athletics. ASBs are also coordinating new incoming freshman nights across the district, one as early as next week. These events are amazing as they connect future high schoolers with their new campuses and also combat the decreasing enrollment we see in our district. Students are also electing new ASB officers and representatives. Schools are holding food fairs district-wide. One ASB is working on a custodian appreciation week, honoring their great work, along with spring sports assemblies district-wide where yells and pep assemblies can be heard from blocks away. As far as school climate and culture, there's been stink bombs at multiple campuses, which is really interesting. There's also been unsafe practices on social media, and these are some of the issues ASB presidents are committed to working on. There also continues to be a very limited amount of bathrooms open on campus in the name of safety. As one ASB president said, and I quote, "We now have 2 bathrooms open. A win is a win." As for me, I was able to attend and speak on a panel at the district's RISE conference where I was able to share my experiences as a BSU leader on campus, but also the student board rep. And then finally, myself and the team will be hitting up Otay Ranch High School as we're on the road to 1,000 pre-registered and registered to vote.
Okay, so this is the point of the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes to do so. Pursuant to board bylaw, the board may limit the time for public comment on any single topic to 20 minutes per topic. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action on or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the superintendent's office for review and report. Speakers shall refrain from using profanity and shall speak in a respectful manner. Thank you for your cooperation.
Kathleen Shears.
Good evening. Allow me to begin by congratulating the Lady Aztec girls basketball team. The community, the Montgomery community, is most proud of them. As a previous basketball mother and grandmother, I know the hard work and commitment it takes to participate in a team sport while keeping up with the grades. Memories lasting a lifetime. Thank you to Coach Bracey for a job well done. Coaches like yourself, Lori Morris, Mr. Estrada, Mr. Dumas, Casey Clockgether, Coach Akala, Coach Jeremiah. Many do not realize for persons like yourself, this is more than an underpaid job. It was wonderful to see KUSI featuring Chula High's Performing Arts program on their morning show. And then there was the Chula High's Choir's performance on Channel 8's feature, spotlighting all Chula Vista has to offer. They performed on 3rd Avenue. These 3 examples of our district's cherished students, a reminder what our major objective is. They, this community's middle and high school students, should always be our main focus, even though we disagree occasionally. Thank you.
Michelle Beal.
Michelle Beal, President of SCGA. Every board meeting, I, along with counselors throughout the district, sit and listen to the superintendent and the board members give updates on their travels throughout the district and highlight all the great things happening at our school sites, many of which are overseen by counselors or that counselors play a vital role in. We also hear the superintendent and board members speak to the importance of the work that we do as counselors. In fact, on February 5th, the superintendent himself addressed the counselors and shared how much he appreciated their work and how much he valued each and every one of them. Most counselors took his words to be sincere, while others took them with a grain of salt because since his tenure as superintendent, the actions of the district have shown to be quite different. Additionally, we often hear Mr. Ringfold share how students throughout the district are asking for more access to more counselors so that they can gain access to more support and resources. In July 2022, despite the overwhelming success in increasing graduation rates, a statistic the district loves to publicize, the superintendent made the decision to eliminate the counselor on special assignment for foster and homeless youth, citing, of course, budgetary concerns. The superintendent's commitment to the then board was that even with the elimination of the COSA position, these students would not face any reduction in direct services or support. Less than a month later, the COSA position was replaced with yet another program manager, and sadly, the foster and homeless youth have yet to receive any of the direct services and supports promised by the superintendent, thus forcing this population of students to do without, all while the district continues to collect funding for them. In fact, since the time the COSA position was eliminated, and despite repeated requests for updates from this department, counselors have yet to receive any information or even a response to their request for services and supports. Last school year, the district moved forward with their decision to eliminate the 3 remaining learning centers, citing, of course, budgetary concerns. Recognizing how students would be greatly impacted by this decision, counselors and teachers spoke out at board meetings and sent communication to board members. Our concerns fell on deaf ears, and the district instead crafted a plan to utilize Apex during the school day to replace the Learning Center, a plan that has not been successful yet. Today, the 2 remaining COSAs who oversee more work than the district is even aware of, which is what you were handed, were informed that their positions were being eliminated. This time, the superintendent's rationale was the funds being utilized to cover these positions were going to be redistributed to cover the cost of what the counselors had been asking for, which then raises the questions, what have we been asking for? A lower caseload, reinstatement of learning centers, reinstatement of the coastal foster and homeless youth, adequate number of summer school hours. We haven't asked for anything other than to honor our contract. So is it that the superintendent is clairvoyant and knows what we're going to ask for? Dr. Aguirre, is this what you meant when you said the district would be evaluating all positions in the district to see if they are necessary? It's interesting that you continue to deem counseling positions unnecessary while continue to increase the number of management positions in this district. Yet your management continue to rely on the districts for help to have them succeed. Since you've taken these roles, you've continued to make drastic cuts to counseling services. And these cuts directly affect students and families, which is probably why many families are choosing not to send their students to our schools. So each of you needs to ask yourself if you're okay sitting by as his actions have a lasting impact on our students and in this district. Unlike some people sitting in this room, we are committed, all of us, counselors, teachers are committed to the students in this district, and we're not seeking employment in other places in the county.
Nancy Nieto.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Aguirre, and our school board member, student school board member. My name is Nancy Castro Nieto, and I retired from the district in 2020 after 34 years of being a school counselor. I started my career at Southwest High School, worked there for 10 years, worked at Eastlake High School for 14, and worked as counselor on special assignment for the last 10 years before I retired. I loved my job. I am here tonight because I heard today that you are planning to eliminate the counselor on special assignment, the COSA positions. There are only 2 COSAs in the district supporting the counseling unit, both middle and high school, the curriculum office, IT, the registrars, our local colleges and universities, and our local college outreach programs. I want to remind you that teaching and learning have provided TOSAs by discipline, which is fantastic. But what about the counselors? You're going to eliminate the support that they have. Many of the board members were not in office when I was a COSA, but here a quick snapshot. We coordinated the efforts with San Diego State University regarding Compact for Success, all the field trips, the workshops, the communications, and is the main liaison with the Compact office at SDSU. We coordinated the efforts with UCSD and Southwestern College for activities and workshops for the counselors, students, and parents. We scheduled the financial aid events around the district for the seniors and the big college and career fair and for their families and students. We coordinated the efforts of all college outreach services so the counselors and the schools know who are working with our families and our students in our school site. All the history building and creating custom transcripts of the VAX, Power School, Chancery, all the different programs that we've had in the district, a counselor was assigned to that, and that was our COSA. End of the year transcripts, clearing and certification of all senior transcripts. We go through each transcript to make sure that everything is zeroed out. So when the colleges get them, they are all correct and there are no questions. Coordinating, a big thing also is coordinating the efforts of the UC and the UC A through G and NCAA eligibility submissions. That is a COSA position because at one time it was all the schools doing it, one counselor in each school, and different words, different classes, different things were going on, and the district effort made it much more streamlined. These are just a few of the things that the COSAs do. I ask that you do your due diligence before you vote to eliminate, to truly find out the history and the importance of their jobs to the district and to the students and their families. Thank you.
No further speakers. Okay.
The board, would you please read the items being pulled from the consent agenda?
Yes, there's one change on board agenda item L3. The names of the recommended appointments were added to the analysis. The following items are pulled: F3 by staff, F7 by the public, G1 by the public, G7 by Mr. Segura, K1 by Dr. Arancibia, K5 by staff and the public, K10 by the public, L1 by the public, M4 by the public, O4 by the public, Q1 by the public, Q6 by staff, and Q7 by staff.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Ringfield,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Emerald,
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Do you want to move on to F3?
No, we wanted to request to do O4 first.
Oh, 4, yes, oh, I'm sorry.
You wanna-
Thank you, President Arancibia. At this time, this is a presentation information only where we have asked the consultant who was looking into doing a poll to gauge community interest for a possible bond to be placed on the ballot in November of 2024. So this time we've asked a representative from Fairbank, Maslin, Mullen, Metz, and Associates to come forward and provide a summary of what that polling demonstrates. So with that.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Gary. Adam Sonnenschein from FM3. Glad to be with you and hope to give you some information on what voters think about the potential for a bond measure for the November 2024 ballot. I'm going to start with just a little bit of the background on how we did the survey. This was done before the end of the year. In December, we did what's called a dual mode voter survey. I'll explain what dual mode means in just a moment. The folks we talked to are all likely November 2024 voters in your district, and that means they're registered to vote and they have a past voting history, which indicates they'd be likely to vote again in an upcoming election. We did 643 survey interviews, which means for questions asked of everybody, you have a margin of error of basically plus or minus 4%, so just keep that in mind. Okay, dual mode means we had some people who took the survey by phone and others online. The phones were done with live telephone interviewers on both cell phones or landlines. We sent emails and text message invitations for your voters to take the survey online. They could do one or the other. And this isn't one of the online surveys you might see on Facebook where anybody could take it, or you could take it 20 times, right? It's protected, so each voter who has the opportunity to receive that invitation could only do it once. And we do have some past survey information which we were able to track for the purpose of writing questions and seeing trends over time. The survey was available in both English and Spanish. And you might see something that doesn't quite add up to 100%. That's because we've rounded decimal points, okay? So starting with one of the most important questions, and unfortunately you've got a line right through the numbers, but this is a question of how much need do voters perceive there is for additional funding for the district? This is a question that we ask on almost all funding measure surveys, whether it's a bond or a sales tax or anything else. And we're not specific to facilities or any kind of program. We're really just being general here. And what we see is in the current survey, 61% continue to think that the district has a great or some need for additional funding. Just 18% would say a little or no real need. We do see a substantial portion, 21%, who don't know. And that indicates potentially the opportunity for some outreach and communication to help people fill in some of those gaps. But you see it's not that different from where you've been in past surveys, ranging from 63 all the way up to 74 at various times when we've asked this question in the past. Okay. Now, when we want to test the viability of a bond measure, we find the best way to do that is to put together the draft of a 75-word ballot question, the kind that voters would actually get when they go and vote, as opposed to asking this as a more conceptual question. So we've done that here. You can see that we've put a title on it, the Sweetwater Union High School District Classroom Repair, Upgrade, and Safety Measure. We've given some illustrative examples of how the funding from the measure could be used, including things like repairing and upgrading schools, vocational career education, science, engineering, safety and security, asbestos, lead paint, and mold removal, repairing gas and sewer lines, et cetera. Then we have a lot of legally required language that the state now mandates as part of your bond measure. So everything that starts at shall Sweetwater Union High School District all the way down to while bonds are outstanding, all that language is legally required. So even though it's a little confusing and it's got a lot of numbers in it and not everybody totally can follow what that means, we have to include it. But you can see we tested a bond that would authorize $647 million for the district. And then we put some fiscal accountability language at the end, things like public spending disclosure and oversight, which are things that voters value but they don't necessarily know are inherent in that kind of measure. So we asked people based on just that reading of those 75 words if they would be likely to favor the measure or oppose it if there was an election held today. We start at 62% yes to 28% no. Now you can see we follow with a little bit of a follow-up of intensity of that support or opposition. So if they said yes, we said, is that definitely yes or probably yes? If they say no, is that definitely no or probably no? And if they say they're not sure, we ask if they're leaning towards voting yes or leaning towards voting no, but without giving them new information at this point. So you can see that 62% includes about 55%, which is the threshold that's needed to pass this kind of measure, who would either definitely or probably support it. Another 8% who are on the fence a little bit, but they're leaning towards yes. And that's, again, another indication that some additional outreach could help voters understand more about the needs of the district and why this measure would be important. On the flip side, we got about 10% who are just outright undecided. They're not sure how they would vote on this at this time, or they didn't want to tell us. To give you a little bit of a sense of the demographic breakdown here, we did find across geographic areas of the district, looking at this by trustee area, support at over 55% in all of the district trustee areas, the highest in 1 in 5, but everywhere close to 60%, and really statistically not a huge difference between any of them. Along the bottom, you can see those numbers in parentheses. Those are our expectations for the percentages of likely voters in each trustee area. So for example, trustee area 1, we're expecting 17% of the likely voters to be in that district. Okay? Good support across the district geographically. Also by both homeowners and renters. Obviously for a school bond, you always want to make sure that the homeowners are understanding at least or supportive of this. We do find 55% of homeowners are supportive and over 70% of renters. The other thing one other thing we wanted to understand here is what are your voters' priorities for how the funding from this measure could be used or the outcomes that could come from the measure. We know that as a district you have a lot of priorities and things you want to improve and upgrade. We want to see how that aligns with what your voters are looking to do. So this question is going to be on a couple of different slides. I'm not going to read every single number on all of these items, but just to give you a little bit of a sense of where the high priorities are, you see a couple things related to fiscal accountability. So we have requiring public spending disclosure as one of the first. Near the bottom of this slide, you also have requiring annual independent audits. Then we have a few things that relate to kind of repairs and upgrades of health and safety kind of things, providing safe drinking water, repairing leaky roofs, removing asbestos, mold, and lead paint, ensuring every student learns in a classroom that's clean and safe, repairing gas and sewer lines. And then we see some of the STEAM kind of instruction and those kind of educational improvements. And along with that, in terms of the kind of educational upgrades, would be retaining and attracting quality teachers. Now, we know you can't use the money from the bond to pay teacher salaries, but it's been our finding in many districts that if you have safer classrooms, cleaner classrooms, upgraded classrooms, you'll have a better chance of keeping those teachers on board. To continue this slide, or this question on to the next slide, you'll start to see here, actually, let me go back just for one moment, just to point out how high these priorities are in terms of importance to your voters. Give you some sense, not just of the ranking, but some of these top items, you're getting over 80% of voters saying that's either extremely or very important to them. Those are huge numbers, right? And very few voters saying that it's not too important to them. That would be the orange bars here, which you barely see. Did you want to make a comment? Yeah.
Kind of hard for people to say that they don't want to provide, safe drinking water for their students. You know what I mean? I mean that's some basic human right.
Yes, it's a great point. But also, along with these other things, something that you need to have the funding to be able to continue to offer. So that speaks to maybe some of the priorities in the measure, even exceeding the vote, right? The vote was in the kind of mid-60s. Here you've got support for these items that's in the 80s when we break it down into how the funding could be used. If we go to the next slide, we start to see also high priorities, but more in the 75%, low 70s range in terms of what's important to people. And we start to see a few more of the items related to school security and safety showing up on this slide. If you notice, updating emergency communication systems, enhancing security of school entry points, smoke detectors and fire alarms. At the bottom, improving safety and security systems, along with other things, HVAC and some other things. But this is where some of the security and safety priorities lie in this prioritization. And then on the last slide here, other items that really relate more directly to how you're going to be improving the quality of the education that you're offering. Still high priorities, still relatively low in terms of the orange bars, but the intensity is not quite as high, and overall, if we look at extremely and very important, it's a little bit lower. But here you're getting things like well-rounded education that includes culturally relevant arts and music, vocational and career classrooms, science engineering classrooms, 21st century learning at all schools, et cetera. So you start to see a little bit of the trend there as those educational upgrades are important as well. Now, I showed you where people stand right now when they first understand or that you might be pursuing this measure, but we also provide them with information of the kind the district could be offering to explain why you would be doing this and what the outcomes would be. So we provided several statements. We rotated the order so they weren't always in the same order, and there's no bias there. And we asked people to tell us if it made them more inclined or not to support such a measure. So these are the statements that resonated at the highest levels. Those that the greatest percentage would say made them more inclined to favor this kind of bond. You can see kind of in parentheses little themes. Those aren't part of the survey. They're just a way for us to shorthand what each one is about. But careers, repairs, fiscal accountability, a lot of the same themes that you saw when we were breaking it down into individual items. Here we're kind of telling a little more of a story, and voters respond to those fairly well. You also see as we move on here, school safety and security, highlighting some of the career partnerships that the district is able to offer and would be able to improve and expand if this funding was available, as well as arts, music, and performing arts education and the need to ensure that every student has access to those programs. So collectively, we see several themes that really resonate above the original support for the measure. We then re-ask to see if that's had an impact on people's thinking. And what we find is that in total, the support has gone up a couple points from 62 to 64%, but it seems to have gotten more intense and definite. So whereas it was 35% definitely yes at the outset, after that information, it's up to 43% yes. Okay, and the no vote's gone down from 28 to 23, so a few more people are interested in voting yes, and a few more are undecided who formerly were thinking they would vote no. They're at least open to considering the possibility of supporting the measure. So And a measure that has a 55% threshold, being at 64% is a nicer place than even 62, right? So just a couple of conclusions, and then happy to take whatever questions you might have. We find that a $647 million bond measure for Sweetwater Union High School District is viable for further planning. So we're not saying, you know, you want to act today and put the measure on the ballot right now, but there's planning that needs to happen, and you're in position to be able to do that. We think that community outreach work will be important to help solidify opinions and maintain support for the measure. We find that there's broad support, right, both geographically among homeowners and renters, and without taking you through lots and lots of demographic slides, we find broad support across lots of other subgroups as well. Providing information will be helpful to just at least solidify that support. And then some of the themes and priorities that stood out: fiscal accountability, STEAM instruction, retaining and attracting quality teachers, some of that basic repairs that needs to be made, like safe drinking water, leaky roofs, et cetera. Career vocational programs and upgrades, and then security and student safety. Okay. So I'll stop there, and happy again to take any questions that you might have.
We do have one speaker to this item. Would you like to hear the speaker?
Yes, please.
Kathleen Shears.
I had to rewrite this comment at least 10 times in an attempt to remove disappointing emotion, choosing instead to respond with facts. Homeowners can little afford a new bond. A blanket text to over 100 contacts failed to identify even one person or family who had been surveyed, but only 643 were surveyed. Persons in government and real estate I contacted found the amount being requested absurd based on today's economy. The master plan we paid over $1 million for, identifying district needs prior to the last bond, has not been honored. The priority list of each individual site campus has not been adhered to. The priorities, which were color-coded by need, ignored. The 2023 San Diego Taxpayers Association grade for Sweetwater's transparency was a D as in dog, not B as in boy. The last facility subcommittee information provided on the district website is dated February 11th, 2021, indicating a meeting to be held 2/17/21. This is March 2024. The last actual facility subcommittee meeting was April 20th of 23. Prior to that, July 6th of 2022. Based on the district website documentation, the last bond oversight meeting was May the 17th of 23, 10 months ago. Subsequent to that meeting was a one-page, less than detailed report from Interim Chair Rudy Lopez, which presents as a rubber stamp. Of note, the paragraph which states, and I quote, "There have been 2 open positions for most of 2022-2023. Additionally, in the past 2 months, several members resigned or opted to not continue with second terms. A far comparison to the days of Marinovich, McKierney, O'Neill, and Butler. That tenure brought accolades statewide. Sweetwater was a district to be emulated. Additionally, the same Rudy Lopez report indicated recommendations had been forwarded to the board for review. Those recommendations were not pulled by the dais and not discussed at the June 23 meeting. Please note a facilities and BOC meeting is on this month's agenda just in time for your vote. In summation, all of this information paints a clear picture that we, the community, hardworking and retired taxpayers, are akin to an ATM. The only time we are valued is when you are seeking more millions. Millions the struggling economy most community members cannot afford. Safe water. I would have thought that the millions you spent on those football fields would have been spent on safe water. Thank you.
No further speakers.
Since it's a report, we just move on? I'm sorry. Ms. Brisedo, since it's just a report, we do not vote on this, correct?
There's no vote needed, but if there's any board discussion, you
Any
can
board
have that.
discussion on this? Sure.
I would have to say that my son was one of the persons that was polled for this. And he was a no person. But yeah, he was there, and I said, oh, maybe they'll call me. He was the only one in our household that got polled for this.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Appreciate the report. I think it's as I see it, it's very well needed. You know, to continue to do the work that needs to be done at all our school sites. It costs money to do that, and a lot of money to do that. And if we, I know we're not voting on it, but if we, you know, who it really hurts the way I see it is the schools on the west side. Would hurt them more to not have this funding. I think it would hurt everybody, but I think so more on the west side, in my opinion. I think it's pretty interesting that, you know, that all the things that some of the priorities and you still see, you know, even or it talked about the career technical aspect, you know, that's huge. That's which I've been saying for 9 years. And I'm really glad to see things, you know, in the work that we're doing around that. So I truly appreciate the report. Thank you.
I just wanted to see, oh, sorry, go ahead, go for it.
Just really quick to add on to what you said, when I look at this, these aren't really like wants. A lot of these items are needs. This isn't flashy stuff. This is basic needs that we have, and like you said, especially on the west side, in terms of infrastructure, I think.
Well, I wanted to kind of echo that. I can tell you Ms. Bauer's room over at Benito Vista Middle, because my kids there there are times where they don't have air conditioning at all during the middle of the summer and cannot actively have students in the class, so have to go different places. So yes, I think that this is something that's just basic stuff, and I don't want us to kind of think that it's always west side, east side, because my area functions in the middle, right, by Benito Vista and Hilltop, and there's the middle school is in deep, dire need of repair. It has not had any repair. So this is one of the things I think is important for us to keep in mind, and I want to come back to the point is the things that's needed all the way through. When we were talking about it for the last one, it was going to be about $2 billion to be able to fix all of the things that were going to be needed for the district. That's with a B, not million. $1 billion. So we had begun to ask this question about what things are really, really needed. So this is part of the process of moving slowly along, and I'm appreciative for the report. Is there anyone else? No.
I do want to chime in.
Go for it.
Thank you, President Sivia. So from my perspective, whether one agrees or disagrees with the potential of a new bond, I wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to review where this is at. Again, it's not about anybody having particular information. This is available to the public, and it's not posted on the board system, Novus. So I really want to appreciate the work, because again, at this point, we're not at a place to make a decision. This is information that's being shared so that there can be an understanding of what, as the polling indicates, and this is a sampling method, it's not a census, we all agree to that. But this is important because it gives us an indication of where the community stands, what are some of the priorities, and what are some of the things to pay attention to. That's really what this was meant to be this evening. It's not meant to be an ask for a question. Having said that, I think there's that possibility. I would call it a very distinct and strong possibility. We're not gonna, but that comes at a later date. And so the goal of sharing this information tonight is exactly that. We have this information to share it out, and everybody can come to their own individual conclusions, be those what they may. But the goal was to get this out there, and then the information is out. And again, this is the board nor the district, we do not get to impose this. This is a question that is asked of the community through its voting members, and that is how these types of decisions get made, through a Prop 39 construct where there needs to be at least 55% or more support. So this is not something that anybody gets to impose, rather it's a question that's asked through a democratic process. So I think that is the other important thing to be reminded of, again, regardless of where one might feel or fall on this particular question. So it was the intent here to share the information and let everybody kind of absorb it and process it as they may, but for us to be able to share this with the broader public. So that was about it. So with that, thank you, Adam, for presenting this information.
We'll move on to item F3. Go ahead.
So I'll go
Trustee
first.
Square.
Thank you. I'll just mention a couple functions I attended. I attended one of the coolest things I ever attended in my life was the commissioning of the USS ESB 6 John Canley. And that was at Naval Station North Island. Did anybody else get the invite? No? I don't, they invite me. I just curious. I thought everybody got that, or I don't know. But anyways, it was phenomenal. It was an amazing ship. The ship, when I was on a Navy 40, 30 something years ago, they were a lot more hard. There was a lot of steel, like these newer ships, and I'm glad they are. They treat the sailors like humans now, which is good, right? Very soft, like a hotel type of ish, you know. Just, I mean, there's still three racks in a row, but they have a lot more features than I did, you know. Some cushion and steel, a lot of steel in the Navy back then. But they named the ship after Sergeant Major John Canley. Did I say Conley first? John Canley. He was a African-American gentleman who he was originally awarded, if I remember right, the Navy Cross, and I think it was because they only gave him the Navy Cross because he was black back in the time in the 60s, and that got rectified, and they actually gave him, because he earned it, the Medal of Honor. He was saving his troops while under fire, pulling guys out, getting them to safety while they were shooting at him, and just a number of Marines he saved. It was such a big deal that the Secretary of the Navy was there, Mr. Carlos Del Toro, of Cuban descent, and the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Carlos A. Reese, he was there. So it was a really big deal. I took a tour. My wife and I took a tour. It was well worth 3 hours. Not the tour, but the whole function. And they got to see all the pageantry where the sailors, when they bring the ship online, so to speak, the sailors actually are in formation on the pier, and then they run up onto the ship and line the ship, and then they go through, the Navy goes through with the captain, and then the captain tells the Secretary of Navy that the ship is under watch, its first watch, and it was just a phenomenal experience, and I really enjoyed that. And there was a lot of ROTC or NJROTC folks, kids there, because I all saw them at the taco shop there on the base afterwards. Every one of them was there, busloads of them. So, but it was really phenomenal, and just to see that, and I was really really honored to be there and witness that. I also went to when Castle Park played. I forget the name of the school, but it was at Bonita Vista High School, and they won that game. That was
It was a charter, yeah.
a charter school, and they beat them. It was a phenomenal game. But I think they won 4-1. Was it 4-1? 4-1. But that was a lot of fun. I didn't get to make any of the other ones. I had something come up, but I was watching them the whole time, and it was so exciting to see a team go that far. And Coach Vargas, who coaches the boys there at Castle, he was my daughter's coach, and so I know the gentleman really well. He's very, very great, good teacher, and an ethnic studies teacher. I know it at Castle Park High. So it was really fun to see that. Then I did the Read Across America at my wife's school, and I read Scaredy Squirrel to 3 different classes, and that was so much fun. And just to see all the little young ones, that just is amazing me, just how they just look at you and ask questions and are so innocent and so fun to be around, and just to communicate with them, it just was really cool. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, so I had a really slow month. I did. I attended the plaque dedication at Hilltop High School for Coach Baumgarten. Had a bomb dog. It was amazing. I'm gonna have to find out when they're placed. I can go get another hot dog. They are unbelievable. I also went to read Across America to one of my old schools, and my book was Grumpy Monkey. Grumpy Monkey. And then over the weekend, I went to the VEX Robotic State Championships. On Saturday was middle school, and Rancho del Rey qualified to go to Worlds. Yesterday was high school, and I could not make it because of the time change, and then I had homework, and by the time I looked up, it was probably over. So I don't know if any of our high schools are going to Worlds. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to more activities this month.
Anyone else? I did want to bring up a couple of things. I went to the science fair. I thought it was a really wonderful event that actually bridged different communities, which I thought was wonderful. But I wanted to kind of discuss something, and I want to ask the board if we can get a resolution. After hearing about the bullying and death of Nex in Oklahoma, I was really, really disturbed. And the kid kind of looks like my kid. Non-binary, kid that ended up being killed at school. And I want us to kind of keep in mind one thing. I mean, one of the reasons we were actively trying to get folks to actually talk about and discuss the place and having a place for kids who are queer and part of the LGBTQX community here is precisely to open up a discourse of safety. And when you don't have that discourse of safety and you have a discourse of either shame or shutting out or exclusion, that is precisely what is going to happen in the country. That kids are going to be targeted, and kids are going to face bullying, and then eventually a kid will die. And this is one of the things that, to me, I want to give us credit for having done that. But I also we want to reemphasize, because I know there are other districts weren't like that in our county, and I want to make sure that we, as a community, commit ourselves to provide safety for all of our students, regardless of gender identity, sexuality, whatever, because I think this is something that we encourage through our talk and our discourse. The more that we talk and we shame or we isolate, the more chances that happens. And I'm really, like I said, it was really wonderful for me to participate, for the Pride Month and raising the flag with my child. But I think it's important for us as a community to recognize that we worked really hard to prevent that from happening in our district, and we should consider ourselves a model, because that's how we prevent the violence against our children. And that to me was just one of the things where I'm heartbroken. How can we allow a kid to die and get killed in this kind of situation? And like I said, it hit home, and so I just want us to be really aware of that. And if we can come up with a resolution, Dr. Moore, for this next meeting, I'd really, really appreciate that. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, F7.
Yes, I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
Michelle Beal, President of SCGA. While this agenda item addresses $49,980 in settlement agreements, not including an additional $11,000 in attorney's fees, I'm here tonight to recognize the efforts of all the parents who have been coming and speaking out about the special education matters at the past few board meetings. Listening to the parents share their stories should remind us all of the need to provide our special education students with the services they are entitled to in their IEPs at the time that they ought to be receiving them from highly qualified educators. Offering compensatory education after the fact simply provides students with disabilities compensation to remediate what was not offered at the time the services were due. Again, to those parents who continue to keep coming and speaking out, great job, and keep advocating for your students.
No further speakers.
This is an item we do vote on, correct?
Correct.
Move it.
I'll second.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
G1.
I have two speakers, Juan Pablo Garcia.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Mr. Garcia. I teach economics, which, as I tell students, is the study of rational decision-making. And that's why I'm here, to bring your attention to a very flawed decision with the potential to sow chaos district-wide. We currently use Illuminate as our testing software. It was the shiny new software that replaced Data Director. Hardly anybody objected to that change, as both programs had the same basic functionality, the ability to administer an exam offline and then score it electronically using a scanner or a camera. I'm not ashamed to say that I, like most teachers, administer exams on paper. It's not because I'm tech adverse. I carry the newest Pro iPhone. I don't use a whiteboard or dry erase markers because I prefer writing on a digital display. The reason I still administer tests on paper is to mitigate risk and preserve a paper trail, the same reason we use paper ballots for elections. By contrast, a test administered online has multiple points of failure. Are devices charged? Are they up to date? Is the host site operating? Is the network stable with sufficient bandwidth for heavy load during final exams? We currently administer only a few tests online. It's always a debacle. All staff emails about error screens, missing or ill-timed updates, uninstalled software, frozen devices, slower unstable network access. Our tech support infrastructure routinely buckles under the lightest of network pressure by just a few classrooms that are testing online. So you can imagine my reaction when I heard we would all be forced to switch to Nucella Inc.'s program Formative, which is software designed for online-only administration of tests. I have confirmed with Nucella directly that their program lacks the basic ability to score a paper answer sheet, meaning that teachers who don't test entirely online will have to go back to the pre-Scantron days of scoring thousands of multiple choice questions by hand. What's worse is the manner in which this decision was made. No effort was made whatsoever to solicit feedback from relevant stakeholders. Teachers were not surveyed as to their needs for new testing software, nor was the program piloted on a large scale. My understanding is that one district employee mentioned the program to Dr. Winters, who then made this decision unilaterally, subject to this board's approval, of course. As word has spread, panic has ensued on sites. Teachers are discussing whether to purchase single-use licenses for testing software. Others are looking for old-school Scantron machines on eBay, which of course would mean even less district-wide testing data. This is what happens when decisions are made by those that aren't in the classroom on a day-to-day basis, and who are lured to chase the next big thing by the for-profit ed tech industry. For Sweetwater, it seems like the grass is always greener on the other side when it comes to software. So the fact that an introvert like me is standing here right now should clue you into just how flawed a decision this was. I have never asked much from this board. I realize it's not your responsibility to make our jobs easier. All I ask is that you follow the most important rule of medicine: do no harm. Please don't rubber stamp agenda item G1, a hasty and ill-thought-out decision that will make it much harder for teachers to do their jobs efficiently and effectively. Thank you.
Trevor Angood?
This will be the first of a couple of times I'll be speaking tonight. My name is Trevor Angood, teacher librarian at Eastlake High School. At the largest school in the district, I'm very well versed in terms of the issues that come forward from staff members and from students about the difficulties of some of the technology on campus. Previously, I've served as a BLS for Eastlake High School for 1 year, and since my days at BLS, I've looked forward to this moment because of difficulties with Illuminate in terms of being able to collaborate with colleagues and collaborate with students to be able to show what students have learned. I stand in support of this adoption of the New ZLA's formative platform as an evaluation software for the district. This software will allow for the redirection of Title I and other funding sources that were previously used to purchase classroom software such as Edpuzzle, Quizlet, Pear Deck, and Nearpod. Now, the modes of instruction in these applications will be available to all sites, even those that were previously unable to use them or had them maybe 1 year in, 1 year not. Formative offers 20 different types of answer choices and different options for materials and question types for students. It allows teachers to align assessments to their needs and align with question types found in state testing. On-demand reporting from the micro to macro level allows for teachers and administrators to make best decisions based upon the data of how their students are doing. Gone are the days where I, as a 7th grade teacher, did not know how my students did on the 8th grade history test until a year later. I couldn't redirect my teaching. Finally, the software includes collaboration features that allow for sharing of assessments and assignments across the hall, the PLC, and the district. Ease of sharing coupled with the simple fact that data from Formative will pass on to Google Classroom and on to Jupyter Ed means that teachers will save time because of a few less clicks and a few hundred less grades that will need to be entered twice. Thank you.
No further speakers.
I'd like to ask a question to Dr. Winters. This adoption would not preclude folks maintaining particular ways of doing testing, correct?
So the platform, good afternoon, good evening. The platform does have only online assessment capabilities at this time. It is something they're working on, but they don't have a promise to have paper-based assessments that can be graded outside of the system. And I will say that the reason why we've gone with this platform is that using Illuminate over the past several years, 9 years in particular, the one main time we used Illuminate across our district was during end-of-course exams, and we did give those primarily online. And that system, on 2 occasions during end-of-course exams, failed that not our, it wasn't our Wi-Fi system, but their system failed us. And so there's a number of teachers who have given their opinion to us about not going back with Illuminate. We did still consider Illuminate and Formative and other platforms at during this time period. And I worked with a number of teachers who designed those assessments and used those assessments to get as much feedback as we could. And there are pros and cons to each of those platforms.
Right.
Again, the one we mentioned here, and Mr. Garcia mentioned, is that the paper exams are not a part of the formative assessment system. Could be in the future. But for all those reasons, we went in that direction.
Not in a bad way. I think it's important not to. My mother was an educator, and she told me, you know, we don't. Whatever there's pendulum shifts, we don't go to one extreme of the pendulum and completely eliminate something. And we don't go to the other pendulum shift. Let's try keeping it in the middle, happy middle, so everybody can participate in the way that they can participate. And I would hope that we could kind of do that with that. Does that make sense?
Sure, you bet.
May I interject? As a classroom teacher, I understand your struggles with Illuminate. I hated Illuminate. Never worked. Never worked. I did use News ELA a lot. And even though it was online, I would use it in a small group as part of my instruction. And I preferred it 100 times over than Illuminate. Illuminate did not fulfill all of the promises it said it would do. So, like I said, I understand, and if you're going to use the lesser of the two evils, News ELA is a lot better. I'm sorry.
No further discussion. Is there any further discussion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item G1.
That was G1.
I'm sorry. Item G7. My apologies.
That's okay. Pulled by Mr. Segura.
Yes, I just didn't want this to go through because I am a CTE guy, so, and I truly appreciate this, I don't know how you say that table. How do you say that table?
And not homage.
A not homage table, you know, just providing our students with the best equipment there is and hopefully find a teacher that can teach it. And I'm sure we do, but, you know, always looking for more. And we've done, I just want to tell you, I truly appreciate the support that this board has given to the teachers into those different pathways. I think it's very important. I know I'm saying something I've already said many times before, but just giving it, and I've actually heard Dr. Gary say it, is, you know, just allowing our students to experience different pathways, possible pathways before they get out of high school. You know, that's just huge. Some of them are going to, you know, find out during that period of time. And the more we offer these quality programs, the better we're serving our students. And that's it. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to, did you want to say something, sir? Oh, okay. You're looking at me like you.
Are you entertaining a motion or making a motion?
I'll second.
Sorry about that, President.
Believe me, I've done it more than once, so don't even worry about it.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Yes.
Segura? Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item K1, and the reason I pulled item K1 is because I need to recuse myself from this. But other than that, I want to see if anybody had any comments. If not, we could entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia? Recuse? Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 recusal.
Item K5.
Thank you, President Arancibia. This is the item where we bring the report and request to approve the 23-24 second interim report with a positive certification indicating financial obligations can be met during the 24-25 and 25-26 fiscal years. With that, I will ask Dr. Salkel to present this item. Dr. Salkel.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre, and good evening, President Arancibia, Board Trustees, and our Cabinet and community. So we'll be presenting the second interim report this evening, which will cover the time period of July to January. We look at the actuals, And then we also evaluate what our projected fund balance will be as of June. So we'll go over some of the considerations here on this slide regarding the budget timeline, some of our assumptions, because we did receive new information with the governor's release of the budget in January. And here too, as Dr. Aguirre mentioned, we are, based on this information, bringing forward a positive certification to the board, because at this point, whether it's first interim or second interim, it's the opportunity to look at the financial condition of the district for a 3-year period. So the current year plus 2 years, but I'll provide you the details here in terms of what is the basis for that positive certification. And again, this is just a snapshot because this is our roadmap ahead with the January's proposal that was released by the governor. There are quite a few assumptions that did change our numbers from we last presented back in December. So the details at the state level certainly have an impact to us here at the district as we do our budget planning for 24-25, and then we'll also go over some of our local considerations. But we'll go through those details because that sets things in motion in terms of what will be updated at the state budget in May, and then ultimately what we bring forward to the board in June along with the LCAP report. And so at the state level, a lot of what was included in the proposal is reflective of much lower than anticipated state general fund revenues. It is a significant shortfall at the state. So there are some changes here to Prop 98, which then result in, and this is going to be a common theme, not only at the state level, but also here locally, where some of the solutions include utilizing the reserves at the state level. So over the last few years, it was set in motion with Governor Brown with Proposition 2. We've talked about the rainy day fund. It's now coming to fruition where they're going to be utilizing those funds to help balance the state budget and to minimize some of the impact to schools. However, that impact, in order to fund the local control funding formula, those reserves are also now being accounted for, but there is a reduction in the cost of living adjustment compared to what was presented in December. December, we had the assumption of 3.94 going into 24-25. It is now 0.76%. We had shared in December just some early preliminary numbers that we're thinking about $12 to $13 million. Ends up being more like 14 million. We'll share that in a subsequent slide. So that's a significant reduction, which then impacts that plan for 24-25, and it has that compounding effect into the out years. So that impacts our district reserves. So with those state assumptions, then we also look at our local assumptions. Again, every reporting cycle gives us an opportunity to look at our numbers. As I've shared before, and I know Dr. Gary's highlighted this as well, is our enrollment continues to see that downward trajectory. So this is kind of that graphical standpoint, but I'll give you here in terms of the numbers. We've made those adjustments in the out years, kind of looking at what we're seeing, those cohorts of students coming in and so forth. And I've also just provided the budget development just as a reference where we were at kind of a year ago. So if we look at 24-25, we were anticipating 34,810. With this second interim, and as we build the budget plan, it's 34,343.
And if I may, at this point, Dr. Sokol, when we talk about declining enrollment, this is what we're talking about. And I also want to add a couple of things. So one, our theory of action is to make these adjustments with the least amount of pain across the system as possible. However, given this amount of declining enrollment, that's going to be a challenge. That's just the reality. And the challenge we're facing is a challenge of arithmetic. There are simply less kids. Whether it's because it's expensive to live here, because the birth rate has declined, and not just within our region, but across the world, quite frankly, we're facing this challenge. So, we haven't seen a commensurate number of students show up at charter schools or private schools. We have not seen 5,000 students disperse across charter schools and private schools. So I think that is a logical fallacy when folks try to make that argument. However, we must be responsible with the resources that we have. And again, if you just look at that table and see the numbers, we must be responsible stewards. We're trying to do this in a manner as possible so it's a gliding rather than falling off a cliff. And so we are in a very similar situation than many other districts across our region, across the state. And I'm grateful for the fact that we are able to present to you this evening a positive budget certification. But I think this table is very telling in the challenges that we have, the challenges we have had, and the challenges that we will continue to have. So I think I just wanted to make that note on this particular piece of information because it's going to shape how we move forward. And again, I don't believe anybody gets into education because we want to do less for kids. We all want to do more for kids. But when the state is having fiscal challenges and we have declining enrollment to this degree, we are going to be needing to make some adjustments, again, to the degree that's least painful as possible. So those are the challenges and the questions that we will be facing before us in the future. As you can tell, this pattern continues. So I didn't mean to interrupt Dr. Sacco, but I thought that was a very telling piece of information that needed a little bit of pause. Thank you.
And so this is the slide that compares from first interim as an example to second interim. And you can see, as I mentioned earlier, that change, and this is kind of in that 24-25 column, it's about $14 million. So in addition to what Dr. Gary mentioned with the enrollment, and couple that with also the average daily attendance percentage, the district hasn't rebounded to the numbers that have been historically around 94%. We're still hovering around 92. I mean, it's gone up a little bit, but given the 2020-21 timeframe, but that too also impacts revenue. So all of these variables here on this slide will go into the local control funding formula, which is the primary source of revenues for the district. Okay, so we're looking at now a change where we were at 487 million at first interim. Now we're looking at 473 million, primarily because of that cost of living adjustment change. So something to keep an eye out to see how that looks in May, if that changes again, if it's going to be fully funded. Okay. And then with, again, some other key assumptions that go into the calculations. And this slide here highlights how we compare for each of the reporting periods. So particularly looking at column D and E. Nothing significantly has changed from the expenditure standpoint from what we had reported at first interim. What is the key change here, which does help us from a bottom line standpoint a little bit, is our revenues. Our interest income from the cash sitting in the county treasury account came in a little bit higher than what we anticipated, so we reflected that. And then also, as we review our actuals with the home to school transportation revenues, we made some adjustments there. So a little over $7 million. So we made that adjustment. It's reflected here. It's really the only key change. So that's why you see that fund balance went from 103 million to 110. And then with that, this now is our multi-year. And as I mentioned, it is positive certification. However, and I highlighted this at the last meeting, we are, as a district, we have a structural deficit, right? So this now is further compounded with that cost of living reduction. So our revenues are much less than our expenditures. And so with that, all of our reserves, based on these projections, have been exhausted through the 25-26 year, other than the required 2% economic uncertainty and some other set-asides that are required. So that does qualify the district for a positive certification because it does meet those obligations for those 3 years. But that's something to note as we get close to budget adoption in June, we will now add another year, which would be the 26-27 year. So that will definitely require some decisions. The county, this report to the county last week. So they already started to ask those questions. What decisions, what things might come forward to address that structural deficit in the out years, particularly as we get ready for June. And again, kind of just going through those items. From a cash standpoint, we do have the cash on hand. We don't anticipate doing a tax revenue anticipation note in 24-25, but again, that could change as we move forward into the subsequent year. The district will probably be in that position again, or to do some internal borrowing. The next few slides here are our restricted funds. Adult ed, just one item to note here related to AB 1491. There is a required spend down plan because there's a cap of 20% to the reserves. So a lot of that spend down plan is around capital facilities. So we've been working with various stakeholders on that. The other thing to note here that is different from first interim is our cafeteria fund. So the ending balance is now a little over $8 million. It is in regards to annually we meet with the county or the California Department of Education. The net cash resource calculator, they look at kind of the spend and where the cash position is. There is a plan of about $5 million that they're anticipating that be spent down, so it has to be reflected on here, so that's been accounted for. And we continue with all the other capital funds in terms of the various projects and so forth that have been noted. And with that, then that is where we're bringing forward the staff recommendation with a positive certification to the board, and then subsequently to the county office, and then to the Department of Ed.
Thank you, Dr. Sakam. The district has been really, really blessed to have this work for the past 4 years that I've been on the board. You've been kind of guiding us through along with Dr. Aguirre, and I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts, because we understand how important it is, they are, I should say, and how important it is as a district that we have kind of a sober analysis of how we move forward. And that decision that will have to come in June are the ones that I think everybody is frightened to make or kind of concerned about making, but we'll have to make them as they come. Dr. Aguirre?
Thank you. Again, for my perspective is we have the vehicles in place through things such as position control to really look at how we invest in our district and what expenditures are made. Moving forward, I think that process will be utilized to a greater degree, and when positions come open, there will be a greater degree of focus. Sometimes they're funded through grants or whatnot, or categorical funding. So we're going to be in a place where we're going to continue to look at them, but we're just going to look at them a lot more closely beginning with the next fiscal year. Again, when separations happen from the district, we're just going to be paying a lot more close attention to those. And it is very likely that some and perhaps many of those positions may not be backfilled. And that is what an attrition process consists of. We're not in a place currently having to do a significant number of layoffs. We're not going to be doing that. But at the same time, we need to be availing ourselves of a true attrition-based process. So when staff leave, we'll be looking more closely at funding sources or whatnot as we move forward, as well as any position that may be on a special assignment. Those are going to be looking a lot more closely with a goal to avoid, if possible, or mitigate against any need for layoffs next year. So that's the theory of action.
I have one speaker to this item. Michelle Beal.
Michelle Beal, President of SUHSD. Having been in the district for over 20 years, it is disheartening to see the projected enrollment in our district continue to decline. I know, Dr. Aguirre, you have said that you think largely in part of a lot of it has to do with that there is a lower birth rate, which obviously we can't argue with. If there's a lower birth rate and there's fewer kids, then there's fewer kids. But I believe the real concern is the students who are simply choosing not to come to our school district. Over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to speak with students and families, and they have continuously cited that our schools don't provide the services that their students need or that their students are requesting, and instead they're choosing to go to private schools and charter schools. In fact, I was looking after the agenda review, and according to the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools, it appears that there has been an upward trend of enrollment in charter schools since 2011-2012. So while they're not seeing the 5,000 in increase as you stated, they are still seeing some of those. So considering this trend, what steps will the district leadership to take to capture and re-engage these students? Also of note, Dr. Salkeld said that we had been hovering around a 94% on attendance, and we're now down to 92%, and that the attendance has still not rebounded. So if we know that, and we know that that's where we recoup and we get our money from, then why are we cutting and reducing the attendance allocations at the sites if we want to get back to that 94%?
No further speakers.
I want to address another couple of fallacies. That the fallacy that folks are moving to charter schools is actually, that's one of the things I'm kind of like seeing over and over. That's not true. What we're seeing actually is in public schools, and this is I've seen from 3 districts, that folks that have any kind, students that have any kind of IEPs are actually moving back to the schools, their home schools, simply because the charter schools are not equipped to be able to deal with the IEPs and the special needs that their students have. And then the enrollment for charters has actually dramatically declined for that reason. And this is one of the things I think that we understand this is a statewide problem. And this is something that, as a region, we're trying to understand. And we feel it acutely, but I think the most important thing is that you can see other districts like San Diego Unified feel it even more acutely because they're bigger and they have a larger difficulty in making shifts in terms of what they want to do. So I'm actually very, very, very happy that you've taken this on, and I think you've actually provided a pathway for our district to soft land this crisis that we're walking into.
And if I might add, not just soft landing, but you're giving us advance notice to get more creative about how we save money and how we bring more students into the district. There are a lot of moving parts here. So it's good to have an advance notice so that we can really come together and strategize about this. Because this is an excellent district, and we're creating new programs that are relevant to more and more students. May it be the CTE or the middle college issues where we help our students start getting their foot into the community college and start prepping for a further education. So there's a lot going on here, and it's just finding ways then to bring more students in. And while we craft a budget that may be slimmer, but hopefully it will continue to get the job done. Thanks.
Add something? This is a collaborative. It is not just a district issue. It is everybody's issue. It's the teachers, it's the counselors, it's the classified, it's all of us. We all need to work together to decide what is going to be the very best for our students in the future and how are we going to get it there. Asking a particular group to fix it isn't going to do it because you may not agree with what they come up with. So cooperation and collaboration now and for the times that are coming, because there will be difficult times and we need to cooperate and collaborate together to find the best solutions.
You need a motion.
I'll
for
make a
this
motion
item.
to accept or approve.
So moved.
Wingfield? Oh.
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Cepeda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
I believe we are on K10.
Yes, I have one speaker, Kathleen Cheers.
While I stand by my objections to continuing to use any auditor for this period of time, I would like to express my appreciation as a taxpayer for the decrease in the price from 2023. Based on my research, we paid $159,135 last year. 4 questions, Dr. Arencibia, if I may. After the deficit was uncovered by the FICMAT audit, Crow submitted a change order in price indicating a more in-depth scope was necessary. My first question is, the post-deficit change order scope, is this the scope that will be used in this audit? Second question, which is based on employee comments in a previous meeting, will the credit hold accounts be taken into account when conducting the audits? Third question, have the credit holds been zeroed out and are all vendors now current? Fourth, have the issues with the Infor system been corrected? Thank you.
No further speakers.
Dr. Guillen?
Thank you, President Arencibia. For those questions, I'll ask Dr. Sockville. I can address generally. The Infor process has been a process, and while there's been some collaboration with our CSEA partners, I think it's still very much in process. So I don't know that I'll ask Dr. Sacco, but it's my understanding there's still some challenges there. I'm not going to kind of minimize those. But at the end of the day, there have been steps taken working with our partners to be able to address and bring some additional level resources to provide support to the team that is responsible for processing, whether it's credit holds or just processing of invoices. So that is a work in progress. But I do know that Dr. Sacco has led some conversations to be able to bring some additional resources there. And then Dr. Sacco, we can provide kind of a general update on the Infor implementation, as well as some next steps and where do we currently stand.
Thank you, Dr. Geary. I think you've summarized that well in terms of the work that with Infor coming online, it is a continued process. And some of the items that we're doing, looking at vendors and that transition of the invoices and the conversion of the data from June. We've made some significant strides in getting that addressed and working with our vendors. We have several calls with vendors to check in on things and status. And then Infor continues to do some work. We actually have scheduled for July go live for our timekeeping and our absence management system. So it is a transitional period from financial system to the HR side of it to also then timekeeping and payroll. As it relates to the change order question, the scope that Crow was working at the time also was tied to our Securities and Exchange Commission. So a lot of that got addressed during that time frame that they did their work around that.
Any further questions, comments?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item L1.
I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
Michelle Beal, SCGA President. Listed on tonight's L1 report is a Human Resources Administrator, Tim Esposito. It's unclear who this additional Human Resources Administrator is. However, it's my understanding through public records request was submitted, and it appears he's earning about $1,000 a day, which exceeds the salary of any director in SUHSD. At a time when we're being expected to accomplish more with fewer resources, why would we have an additional human resources, or basically a second assistant superintendent in human resources? Furthermore, when COSAs are being informed that they're being placed in excess, obviously without collaboration, why would we have a second assistant superintendent of human resources? The question I have is, if a PRA had not been submitted, would this undisclosed administrator had been brought to the attention of the board and the public tonight? It's widely known that there was also an additional human resources administrator concealed within HR for approximately 6 months last school year, with his name is Bill Singh. So with all these additional human resources administrators, it's no wonder we can't afford to keep or offer positions that directly impact students. So again, it comes to the question is, are these, when we're talking about the positions that we want to utilize and look to see, are they, as you said, collaboratively looking at to see if these are the best for students? How are we making these decisions?
No further speakers.
I'll make a motion for approval L1.
Second.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Yes.
Segura? Yes. Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item M4.
I have one speaker, Trevor Angood.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Angood, teacher librarian at Eastlake High School. As students on campus know, including one speaking to his mother this past fall, a staff member on campus, surprised at the timeline and the plans for this project, Mom, Mr. Angood's been talking about this for a year. I was excited at this next step in the repurposing and refurbing a building originally built as a dual-site library for both Eastlake High School and the city of Chula Vista. Now, the refurb will reduce the textbook and library footprint that frees up space that will house expanded space and facilities for our moderate to severe special education program. Due to the building's proximity to the softball and football track field, the building will house a classroom, after-hours tape room, and storage for our CTE sports med program. Anytime I speak on the refurbishment to colleagues and parents, I convey with much appreciation of past Eastlake Principal Dr. Ricardo Cook and current Principal Ms. Diane Huslin for allowing me the opportunity to sit in and offer feedback and suggestions for the library and textbook portions that fall under my purview and management. With the simple suggestion of having shelving completely mobile, I'm only limited by the columns that Janaea Quirk still swears I cannot move or reduce or get rid of. Come on! I kid. But those columns coupled with shelving can act as temporary dividers to allow for the library to be used for different purposes at the same time for each student or by classes or student organizations. I'm also quick to thank Ms. Quirk, her staff, Jason Brust, and Janice Alcaraz for allowing the vision of a building, not of a book depository, which libraries of the past are, but of a learning commons, because we are bringing together so many different education programs under one building. That is where my speech ended off, but I speak in support of it because I get a pretty building at the end. And so I'm very much appreciative of district staff and personnel that allowed me the opportunity to speak in towards of making this vision a reality. Thank you very much.
No further speakers.
Move.
Oh, second.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Zepeda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 04.
We already did that one, sir.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Item Q1.
I have one speaker, Mary Doyle.
Good evening, Board President Arencibia and Superintendent Aguirre, staff, trustees, community, and student trustee Ringfield. My name's Mary Doyle, and I'm a retired Sweetwater teacher and resident of Imperial Beach, and I want to thank you for considering this resolution. I also want to thank the MVH JROTC for their presentation earlier. But I urge you to vote yes on Resolution Q1 on tonight's agenda. Since I first asked this board to consider a resolution back in January decrying the water sewage crisis, many other voices have joined in the chorus and added more data. South Bay Union School Board approved a proclamation February 8th. On February 13th, the State Assembly, led by David Alvarez, unanimously approved a water sewage resolution. Yet another study came out from the San Diego School of Public Health, February 14th, discussing the contaminants in both air, ground, and water, and the risks for human illness. Dr. Stiegler Granados from San Diego State used the term environmental justice, and I quote, "As our border communities are often with limited economic resources, they already have an increased risk of chronic disease." Back on January 11th, Representative Scott Peters spoke at the U.S. House of Representatives floor asking for the $310 million, mentioning, and I quote, "so much. For example, for the risk of national security, where Navy SEALs train in waters contaminated by human feces, the odors of hazardous hydrogen sulfide in neighborhoods, and the work Mexico is doing on their side of the border, which is more than we are so far." I have visited and spoken at 7 school board meetings in the last month and written emails and sent South Bay's proclamation out to all the trustees and superintendents as well. South Bay Union, Sweetwater, San Ysidro Elementary, Coronado Unified, San Diego City Schools, Chula Vista Elementary, and National City Elementary. It's been a fun tour, and I can afford to do that because I'm retired. I urge everyone to attend other school board meetings. You see how things are run just right next door. I've heard from staff at every district but one, Coronado, and I'll visit them this week with more data and more urgency. I'm thanking you in advance for voting yes. Every voice, every statement, every request adds to the chorus. This is just an infrastructure issue. If you remember the $6 million man from the 70s, and I know that dates myself, there's that quote, "We have the technology, we can repair this," or him. We do need more than $6 million, Washington, D.C. We need $310 million, and it seems like every year there's a few more. Every month they add more. So thank you in advance. Please vote yes on Q1. It really helps.
No further speakers.
So moved.
Second.
Just to make a quick comment, if I may, our mayor of Imperial Beach sent along a message for us pointing out that it truly is not just a South Bay issue, a local issue. This is a major international health crisis that we're confronting, and it gets worse and worse every day. According to Paloma Aguirre, our mayor in Imperial Beach, the U.S. International Boundary and Water Commission has documented over 100 billion gallons of toxic effluent into California through the Tijuana River, with an additional 35 billion gallons crossing the international border since December 28th alone. This ongoing inundation of sewage creates the most polluted stretch of sandy beach in our entire country. The community of Imperial Beach and many communities here in the South Bay are bearing the brunt of this environmental disaster with over 817 consecutive days of beach closures due to ongoing influx of sewage, industrial discharges, and trash from the Tijuana River. This pollution, this gross pollution, must stop. And that means that not just our local officials need to step up and be counted, but we need an emergency declaration to protect this entire region from other players here in our region, from the state, and most especially the federal government, which has allocated well over $300 million just in the last couple of years, and is slow in actually giving it away and getting it spent. We do see a repair of pumps now with the latest $150 million that came into the pockets regionally, but most of that money has been spent on our side of the border, where most of the money is going to have to be spent in the future with Punta Banderas and that constant flow of sewage from Tijuana, a city twice our size with twice our population that has no modern sewage system. It's raw sewage going down into the valley and down into the beaches. And so we must have partners from the state and federal government. That's why we are bringing this resolution forward, so we can join the other many responsible and concerned voices that want this offense to our environment and our public health to stop.
So we have a motion and a second?
Yes. Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Peda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item Q6.
This item is pulled by staff to afford Mr. Ringfield the opportunity to abstain, should he so choose.
That was a good way of putting it, Deanne. Thank you. I motion to approve.
Second.
Ringfield?
Abstain.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Peda?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Q7, I will abstain.
Thank you.
See how she got the cue? That was that. We all get the cue from Deanne today. Thanks, Deanna.
Make a motion.
Motion to approve again?
So moved.
Oh, you have a motion. Would that be a second?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Ringfield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Emerald?
Yes.
Lopez Peda?
Abstain.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 abstain.
And with that, I will call the end of the meeting.